At exactly 2:13 a.m., every emergency dispatcher in a small Montana county received the same phone call. The voice on the other end whispered only 6 words: "Don't let them find my body." The terrifying part wasn't the message. It was that the caller had officially been dead for over 30 years. Late October, 2024. The mountains of western Montana had already disappeared beneath the season's first heavy snowfall. Thick pine forests stretched for miles without a single house in sight, and Black Pine Road cut through them like a narrow scar. During the day, truck drivers used it as a shortcut between 2 small towns. But once the sun went down, almost no one willingly drove there. Locals had whispered stories about strange lights between the trees, phantom voices over old CB radios, and a woman dressed in white who appeared only during snowstorms. Most people dismissed those stories as campfire legends, until something happened that every police officer in the county would remember for the rest of their lives. Ethan Brooks had worked as a 911 dispatcher for nearly 8 years. He had handled everything from highway accidents to mountain rescues, and nothing surprised him anymore. On that freezing Tuesday night, the station was unusually quiet. Outside, snow hammered against the windows, while emergency radios crackled with weather updates. Ethan glanced at the digital clock on the wall. 2:13 a.m. The phone rang. It wasn't unusual for emergency calls to come in at that hour. What was unusual was the silence after he answered. "Ethan speaking. What's your emergency?" For nearly 10 seconds, there was nothing except the sound of slow breathing. Then a woman's trembling voice whispered, "Don't let them find my body." The line went dead. Ethan immediately checked the caller ID. There was no phone number. Only one location appeared on his screen: Black Pine Road. Ethan stared at the phone screen for a few seconds. Usually, every 911 call would have some number, cell tower, or GPS information attached to it. But this time, the screen only showed a location: Black Pine Road. No number, no device ID, as if the call had come from nowhere, and yet it had come from there. As per standard protocol, he immediately radioed the nearest patrol unit. Within minutes, Deputy Mark Hayes and Officer Lisa Carter were driving their SUV down the icy road. The dash cam was running. The body camera was on. The temperature outside was about -10 degrees. The huge pine trees stood on either side of the road, as if someone was silently guarding them in the darkness. The deeper the car went, the weaker the radio signal became. Occasionally, the dispatcher's voice would break, and then suddenly, there would be a strange static sound. Lisa thought it might be the weather. But Mark noticed something. Amid the static, a faint female voice seemed to be repeating the same sentence over and over. "He's still waiting." Lisa turned down the volume of the radio when she heard the words clearly. The two looked at each other, but neither said anything. After about a mile, their headlights hit some strange markings on the snow. At first, they thought they were human footprints, but when they stopped and got closer, they saw that the marks were not normal. The distance between each footprint was about 8 to 9 feet, as if someone was walking with much larger strides than a human. Even more frightening, the marks started in the middle of the road and went towards the forest, but there was no sign of them coming back. As Mark lit the torch and shone it on the trees, a very faint sound came from the snow. It seemed that someone was standing far away and crying softly. The branches of the pine trees were moving in the wind, but the sound of the crying did not match the wind. It was as if the sound was calling them into the forest on purpose. Just then, Lisa's police radio turned on by itself. It wasn't the dispatch voice. It was the same female voice. "Please, don't leave me here." Then everything went silent again. Mark stood there for a few seconds, silent. He had seen many strange things in his many years of service, but he had never heard such a voice on the police radio. Lisa whispered, Shall we call for backup? Mark tried to call on the radio, but there was only static. There was no signal on his cell phone either. They had only two options: turn back or find the source of the sound. They followed the huge footprints on the snow, torches in hand, into the forest. After a few minutes of walking, the trees suddenly cleared. A small clearing ahead. In the middle stood a wooden cabin that had been abandoned for years. Half of the roof had collapsed. The windows were missing. The door swayed slowly in the wind. Yet strangely, the layer of snow around the cabin was much thinner than elsewhere, as if the ground was still warm here. As he reached the door, Mark noticed that there were no fresh footprints leading to the cabin, yet the door was slowly opening and closing again. There was wind, but not enough to shake the heavy door like that. As he entered, the torchlight fell on the dusty furniture, an overturned wooden chair, and a rusty calendar hanging on the wall. October 1994. The date on the calendar had never been changed. An old landline telephone lay in a corner of the room. The cord was cut, the receiver covered in dust. It was clear that it had not been in working order for many years. Just then, tring-ting, the telephone rang. Both Mark and Lisa froze. Impossible. There was no power. The phone line was dead. Yet it was ringing. After a few seconds, Mark slowly picked up the receiver. There was no sound from the other end. Then a woman said very softly, "If you're hearing this, you're too late." The call ended. Lisa immediately began searching every room in the cabin. There was dust on the floor of a small bedroom, but it looked as if someone had written something with their finger. The writing became clear as the flashlight shone on it. Emily Carter. Mark's face changed color at the name. He had been reading old case files when he joined the station. Emily Carter was a 24-year-old schoolteacher who disappeared on this black pine road in October 1994 while walking home. A massive search was launched, but her car, her body, nothing was ever found. The case was closed, unsolved a few months later. But something even more terrifying still remained. An old family photo hung on the cabin wall, covered in dust. As Lisa took down the photo and dusted it off, both of them went cold. The young woman standing smiling in the middle of the picture, the exact same face, the exact same look. The voice that called 911 just a few minutes ago. The cabin suddenly fell silent, as if the entire forest was holding its breath. Mark held the picture in his hand and stared at it for a long time. It was no different from the picture in the old case file. The same smile, the same blue jacket, the same silver locket. It was as if the face of Emily Carter, who had disappeared 30 years ago, was staring at them from the wall. Mark immediately began to film every corner of the cabin on his camera. As Lisa opened a small wooden cupboard, a dusty tin box came out from inside. The lock was rusted and weakened. It opened with a little pressure. Inside were a few old pictures, a silver locket, and a diary bound in leather. The first page read, "Emily Carter." Lisa slowly began to read. The first pages of the diary were about ordinary life, school, students, the beauty of the mountains, dreams of the future. But the style of writing had changed in the last pages. The letters were shaky. The ink was smeared in many places, as if it had been written in a hurry out of fear. On one page, it was written, "At first I thought the man was following me, but then I realized, he never comes in front of me. Every time I look in the rearview mirror, he gets closer and closer. As soon as I stop the car, he disappears." On another page, it was written, "Everyone says I'm stressed, but they don't understand. He's not human. He waits until you're alone." The very last page of the diary was almost torn. Only an incomplete sentence was visible below. "If anyone finds this diary, ever..." Nothing more after that. Just then, Heavy footsteps were heard outside the cabin. Knock, knock, knock. The sound was slowly approaching the door. Mark quickly shone the flashlight on the door. No one. But the sound didn't stop. Now it was coming. From the roof. They both raised their heads together. Then, a loud noise shook the entire cabin. It was as if something very heavy was walking slowly across the roof. The wood creaked with each step. "Knock, knock, knock," Lisa whispered. "It's not a bear." At that moment, the torchlight outside the cabin's broken window touched a figure for a second. Standing between two pine trees was an unusually tall shadow figure, at least 8 feet tall. The face was not visible, but 2 pale white eyes were staring straight into the cabin through the darkness. 1 second, 2 seconds. Then it was no longer there. Mark ran outside. All around was only snow, wind, and darkness. But huge footprints had appeared on the snow again. They had gradually gone deeper into the forest. And at that moment, another 911 call popped up on Ethan's computer sitting in the dispatch center. Again, no number. Again, the same location. Black Pine Road. This time, it wasn't Emily's voice from the other end. The serious voice of an unknown man said very slowly, "You should have left." The call immediately ended. Sitting in the dispatch center, Ethan's hands were shaking. He immediately called Mark's radio. "Mark, respond. Do you copy?" No answer. Second time, third time. Suddenly, Mark's voice came through the static on the radio. "Ethan, don't come here." Then the voice changed. The same voice, but it seemed like someone else was using it. "Stay with us." The radio went silent. Meanwhile, Mark and Lisa followed the giant footprints deeper into the forest. After about 10 minutes of walking, they saw something metallic glinting under the snow. As the snow cleared, they saw the roof of an old car. A rescue team was called. After several hours of effort, the entire car was pulled out from under the snow. By matching the license plate number, the police confirmed that it was Emily Carter's car, the car that no one had found for 30 years. But the most terrifying scene had yet to come to light. Emily's skeleton was sitting in the driver's seat. She was holding the steering wheel tightly with both hands, as if she had tried to escape until the last moment. She still had that silver locket around her neck, the same one they had seen in the tin box in the cabin a few minutes earlier. The same locket, in 2 places. Impossible. The forensic team arrived at the scene and gave even more strange information. The skeleton inside the car was at least 30 years old, but the handprint on the car door, only a few hours old. And that handprint was made at the body temperature of a living person, as if someone had touched the car door that night. Over the next few weeks, the police reopened the old case. Testimony, reports, maps from 1994. Everything was re-examined. Then something came to light. Emily Carter wasn't the only missing person. In the past 50 years, a total of 9 people had disappeared from Black Pine Road. Strangely, each of them said the last time they saw someone in their rearview mirror who wasn't actually behind their car. A few months later, the cabin was demolished. The entire area was cordoned off. Officially, the area was prone to landslides. But locals believe the real reason was different, because a worker who had been working the night before the cabin was demolished claimed to have clearly heard an old telephone ringing repeatedly, even though there was no telephone there. 6 months after the incident, Ethan quit his job. He never worked the night shift again. But in an interview, he only said one thing. "The scariest thing isn't the ghosts. The scariest thing is, I still get those calls sometimes." The reporter asked, "What do they say on the other side now?" Ethan was silent for a few seconds before answering. Before they asked for help. Now they just ask, "Are you driving alone?" No one ever knew the answer to that question. But even today, many people who drive alone on Black Pine Road in Montana late at night say the same thing. At first, they don't see anyone in the rearview mirror. Then they look away, look again, and then someone sits silently in the back seat, not smiling, not talking, just waiting, as if to make the next 2:13 a.m. phone call.